Sure.
I know.
A group of residents and business owners near the Port Arthur Prosvita are raising concerns about a plan for a youth center in the building.
A petition opposing the idea is making the rounds and is said to have more than 200 signatures. The proposed youth center was the focus of a meeting last night, and Dennis Ward was there.
How you doing? I'm doing all right. There's a group of residents somewhere.
Opposition builds to a new Indian Friendship Center. The controversial healthcare leader lands in Thunder Bay. And the Festive Ride program has some new tricks for local drivers.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. A group of residents and business owners near the Port Arthur Prosvita are raising concerns about a plan for a youth center in the building.
A petition of people opposed to the idea is making the rounds and is said to have more than 200 signatures. The proposed youth center was the focus of a meeting last night. Dennis Ward was there.
The Indian Friendship Center has a $10 million dream of converting the Port Arthur Prosvita into a multi-use facility, including a youth center. There is plenty of support for the three-phase plan, including from the city, who are being asked to kick in $2.5 million to the capital costs and an annual operating contribution of $300,000. But nearby residents are feeling unnerved by the proposal. Michael Lemisani is one of them and has been collecting names on a petition.
A lot of security issues, parking issues is another big thing. We are really concerned about the expansion with the Friendship Center taking the green space and losing our green space along the backsides of 2nd Avenue. Longtime residents feel like they haven't been heard properly from the city at all.
McKellar Ward Councillor Paul Pugh says he'd be shocked if there weren't concerns. After 3 years on council, he's come to expect that. And while he feels some are valid, he's also very supportive of the idea of the city partnering with the IFC. He also feels the location is perfect.
It's close to the bus lines and everything. And this organization comes with a 50-year history, a very good history. Lots of experience dealing with young people, looking after their issues. So from my point of view, and I think from the city's point of view, this is an excellent possibility.
While Pugh and the IFC feel this is a great location, others do not. They're not opposed to an expansion by the Indian Friendship Center, but have another area of the city in mind.
We believe that the Canadian Lake exhibition, there's a green space across there, and also there's the Lakehead Labour Center on Fort William Road. That could be a perfect center for the youth as they want to encompass the youth into Thunder Bay. Where do the youth go? Is closer to a mall.
The proposed partnership between the IFC and the city is coming to council on Monday with a final vote on January 13th. On that night, Lemisani will make his concerns known. Dennis Ward, TBT News.
A local manufacturing facility with a long history in Thunder Bay is about to shut its doors. Finnish-based Metso confirms it will not renew its lease for a facility on Kingston Street. The closure will mean the loss of 15 local jobs. Metso's pulp, paper and power business says the Enerdry Constructors Limited facility won't be renewed when it expires next April. The operation provided ventilation and metal fabrication services for industries, including mining and power companies. Metso says the closure is part of a global cost competitiveness program aimed at reducing 100 million euros in annual costs. Work currently underway at the facility will be completed. The reductions do not affect 35 office employees working in the sales and service office on Memorial Avenue.
A controversial figure on the Ontario healthcare scene has resurfaced here in Thunder Bay. Officials with the Regional Health Sciences Centre have confirmed that Dr. Chris Mazza is scheduled to work as a short-term locum physician in the hospital's emergency room. Mazza is the former president and CEO of the Orange Air Ambulance Service. He was a central figure in a scandal at the agency that erupted in 2011 involving executive compensation and for-profit activities. A police investigation of the matter is still underway. The hospital included Mazza on a list of 16 short-term and 4 long-term locums that are helping the ER deal with the loss of 6 emergency physicians. There is no word on when Mazza will begin his stint at Thunder Bay Regional.
Mining Minister Michael Gravel is back in the city after a tumultuous day at Queen's Park yesterday. The announcement that Cliffs Natural Resources is closing offices and pulling out of the Ring of Fire led to a barrage of criticism and accusations from opposition parties. Gravel says he has no problem sitting on the hot seat, and as Jonathan Wilson tells us, the minister stands by his government's plan to create a development corporation for the rich mining area.
Well, there's no question. One expects a fairly strong reaction, obviously, when a decision that Cliffs made gets out there.
Minister Michael Gravel spent over half an hour being pelted by heated questions from both the PCs and the New Democrats about the Cliffs' decision to quit the Ring of Fire.
You have absolutely bungled this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
They see a government without any plans, any details, or frankly, any idea what they are doing.
It was certainly a very interesting day in Queen's Park. I was certainly fielding all the questions, and that's appropriate. I'm the Minister of Northern Development Mines. Premier Wynne has tasked me with taking on the responsibilities. And again, the relationship that we have with Cliffs Natural Resources has been a very positive one. I've worked very closely with them. They made a decision, a business decision yesterday to obviously suspend the operations indefinitely. That does not mean they won't come back into the project.
Gravel says although he's disappointed in the decision by Cliffs, he says there's many other companies still eager to create new mines in the Ring of Fire. And Gravel has arranged a meeting with Cliffs executive Bill Bohr to talk about the roadblocks that company is facing.
Well, I'm certainly going to be listening to them. I do want to understand better the basis on which they made the decision, and I've had a very good working relationship with the company, particularly with Bill Bohr, who is a true gentleman, and I'm hoping to have an opportunity to sit down with him next week. So I really do need to listen to what they have to say.
When asked whether he takes personal responsibility for the setback, Gravel says he and his government have to make sure they do things right in the Ring of Fire. He says they've done a lot to move things forward, including consultation and training for First Nations and the creation of the Ring of Fire Development Corporation, which he insists is the vehicle that will get the complex decisions made to access the $60 billion in minerals in that remote area.
We've received very positive response to the Development Corporation. I think that will indeed be the key to moving the project forward.
Jonathan Wilson, TBT News.
Several towns in northwestern Ontario have received a financial boost from the Nuclear Waste Management Organization. Communities that have worked with the agency are getting $400,000 apiece for local improvement projects. And 3 of the towns are moving to the next stage in becoming the possible host site for a used nuclear fuel repository. Scriber, Ignace, and Hornpain were notified by the NWMO that they've completed the first phase of preliminary assessment and have been identified for further study. Wawa and Ear Falls were not selected for more detailed study. A total of 24 communities across Canada, including 8 in the Northwest, have hosted open houses and agreed to learn more about the proposed underground repository. Officials in Nipigon, White River, and Manitouwadge are still waiting for the first phase assessment to be completed. NWMO officials say they decided to give each community the $400,000 whether they were selected or not to show their appreciation for getting involved. Scriber Mayor Don MacArthur says the money can be used for projects, programs, or services that benefit youth and seniors, community sustainability, energy efficiency, or economic development. He says he's pleasantly surprised by the announcement, but points out the next phase will be a lot of work. The NWMO wants to have the repository built within the next 15 years.
The trial of 28-year-old Christian Hernandez is set to continue in 2 weeks' time. A verdict was expected today, but the case involving a fatal collision with a pedestrian has been postponed again. Justice Joyce Pelchier determined today what evidence would be considered admissible in court. A 911 call made by the girlfriend of the accused will be allowed as evidence. The Crown had argued that because the couple is now married, that call should not be admissible. The judge also ruled that breath samples Hernandez gave at the police station that night can be used as evidence as well. Hernandez, who now lives in southern Ontario, is charged with impaired driving causing death and failure to remain at the scene. The accident happened at the corner of Van Norman and High Streets in December 2010. 45-year-old Richard Carmichael died as a result of blunt force trauma. The case returns to court on December 10th to set a date for the rest of the trial.
Thunder Bay Police say they plan on getting creative with this year's Festive Ride program. Like many other traffic programs this year, city officers say they're aiming to be pretty clever this holiday season. The Festive Ride Blitz kicked off today on Arthur Street. OPP officers, in conjunction with City Police, the Nishnabbe Police, and the Canadian Border Service, will be monitoring roads and highways throughout the region, looking for impaired drivers and enforcing the rules of the road. Thunder Bay Police say they'll be sticking to some of their old habits, but they know how prominent social media has become for drivers advising others of where ride stops are. So this year, they'll be pulling out some new stops.
You can expect to see those ride programs where you see the bright lights in the distance, and that's okay. We're going to continue with that, but we're also going to be running ride programs where you won't see us. We're going to be going into neighborhoods. Don't be surprised if you live in Parkdale and you see us on one of the quieter streets or any of the other neighborhoods that are in the city.
Typically what happens with the festive season is that people do intend to have a few drinks. We want to make sure that we get the message out early that if you are going to have a few drinks, ensure that you have made plans to get home safely. You have a driver to drive you home. Make use of the local cab companies. Operation Red Nose is up and running. They'll provide you with a safe and trip home for you and your vehicle.
Ontario Provincial Police responded to 60 alcohol-related collisions last year. They say any accident is a preventable one. With winter weather conditions adding to the safety risks on the road this time of year, officers want everyone to have a safe but festive holiday season.
Some new security measures will soon be in place at the Superior Greenstone District School Board. The board has announced it will install security access devices at all 11 of its elementary schools. The devices consist of a camera and intercom system, which will require visitors to the schools to identify themselves before being granted entry. Director of Education David Tamblin says while they still encourage parents to visit the schools, the new measures are being implemented to ensure the safety of students and staff.
The Thunder Bay and District Humane Society is filling a void for people looking for a calendar featuring local cats and dogs. The Carrie Chase Foundation produced a pet calendar for 10 years, with the final one being released last year. And now the Humane Society is introducing a 2014 calendar. The calendar makes a nice stocking stuffer at $10 a piece and showcases the animals that you can adopt from the Humane Society shelter on Roslyn Road. Officials at the Humane Society says it's always a struggle to raise enough funds every year to support the animals they take care of. So when one of their employees suggested they make a calendar and use their animals, the idea really took off.
The animals in our calendar are all animals that were at the shelter at one time. They were either as a result of investigations or people who could no longer look after their pets and have brought them in. And most of them, I believe, have been adopted.
The calendars will be up for sale at various locations in Thunder Bay, including Walmart, PetSmart, and Pet Value. Humane Society officials hope it can become an annual event.
I'm sure that'll be a hot Christmas seller. I know
yes.
The Carrie Chase calendars used to do very well. So.
Yeah, and who doesn't love cute little animals?
They're adorable. Absolutely adorable.
It might be a good night to stay indoors and check out the calendar because, you know, it started off pretty nice today, but things are definitely getting colder out there, Fiona.
Yeah, the temperatures have been dropping for the last few hours, and we did have a little bit of snow work its way across the region, just a small pocket. In fact, we saw it hit Thunder Bay in the last 2 or 3 hours. You can see it's a very narrow band so far. We topped out with a high of -3 under partly cloudy to cloudy skies, and winds were relatively light from the southwest, just up to 16 kilometers per hour. But it was that wind chill that everybody noticed. -8 was the wind chill when we were at our high, but it was a lot cooler earlier on in the day, wind chill values ranging in the mid-teens. Now, at this time, we're at -7 Celsius, and across the region, it looks like Thunder Bay is one of the hot spots. We've got temperatures in the teens on the minus side for most areas to the west. Lots of cloud in Fort Frances, partly cloudy in Red Lake, and definitely on The eastern side of Lake Superior, Sault Ste. Marie is seeing some milder temperatures, as is Marathon at this time. Greenstone has a little bit of snow in the area. Tonight, we too could see a couple of evening snow showers. Just a little bit, not a whole lot to really worry about. And we're going to drop down to a low of -12, but that's not the number you're noticing on the screen right now, I'm betting. With winds from the northwest, it's that wind chill, -23. And then things are going to start to clear out, which is going to support those really cold temperatures overnight. And we're going to set the stage for a brutally cold Saturday. Now, on the positive side, it's going to be sunny. Unfortunately, it may be a little bit too cold for some of you to enjoy because temperatures are going to be very cold indeed. And as we head into early next week, we could be in for another round of cold weather for, mid to early next week. So get ready. If the snow isn't here yet, well, the temperatures sure are, just proving that winter is starting to settle in the region.
All right, thanks, Fiona. Well, 50 years ago today marks the assassination of John F. Kennedy. We have that story and more for you coming up as your news hour continues.
The usual welcoming committee presents Mrs. Kennedy with a bouquet of red roses.
On this day, half a century ago, John F. Kennedy was assassinated as his motorcade passed through the streets of Dallas.
Yeah, and across the U.S. today, people took time to remember. Lindsay Duncombe reports.
For many, this was a pilgrimage of sorts, a chance to honor not only the slain president, but what he stood for: glamour, equality, America at the peak of its post-war power.
We're the products of that generation, and we're proud of it.
For those too young to remember, being here was important too.
Well, it means preserving history, especially for those who were born after the events, so that they can learn more about it.
President and Mrs. Kennedy, a warm welcome.
50 years ago, the skies cleared just as Kennedy arrived in Dallas. The sun shining as he and Jackie greeted thousands lined up to meet them. Kennedy weather, an aide called it. But not today. It was too cold and wet for the symphony to play here, and a planned military flyover was canceled. America. Still, the soggy chills seem to add to the somber mood. This is the first time the city of Dallas commemorated the event. For years after the assassination, Dallas was known as the city of hate.
A new era dawned and another waned a half a century ago, when hope and hatred collided right here in Dallas.
Across the country, flags were lowered. In Kennedy's hometown, Boston, the governor laid a wreath. Tributes were held at his gravesite.
Would you join me in a moment of silence?
And at that historic corner of Houston and Elm, in the shadow of the Texas Book Depository, at precisely 12:30, silence. To honor the shots fired 50 years ago that brought so much sadness and changed this country and its people so profoundly. Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, Dallas.
Ontario's government has won a decisive battle today at the Supreme Court of Canada. It concerns generic drugs, and it was a case that other provinces have been watching closely. The top court upheld a ban that stopped pharmacies from owning generic drug manufacturing companies. Ron Charles explains.
In Ontario, the government has a big say in how much generic prescription drugs cost. It sets the prices with input from generic drug manufacturers, capping them at 25% of the price of the brand name equivalent. But two national pharmacy chains, Shoppers and Rexall, decided they wanted in on the action and started their own generic drug packaging companies. The Ontario government banned them from doing that. The pharmacies went to court. Today, the Supreme Court of Canada ruled the ban stands. The decision says if pharmacies were permitted to create their own affiliated manufacturers whom they controlled, they would be directly involved in setting the formulary prices and have strong incentive to keep those prices high.
We're very pleased that our program and our initiative has been supported.
Experts say the decision means other provinces are allowed to implement rules to keep drug prices low. But this health economist says today's decision won't necessarily mean lower prices for drugs.
There is no mechanism by which this decision can affect the prices. I have no idea where they came up with this idea. It baffles me.
They both issued statements expressing respect for the court, but disappointment in its decision. Ron Charles, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, you may have heard that cars are cheaper to buy in the United States, like a lot of other things. But now an investigation reveals automakers are blocking Canadians from taking advantage of those cheaper prices, all to protect inflated car costs in this country. Erica Johnson has the story.
Caitlin Main is sussing out new cars in Vancouver. She needs one because this is her old car. The engine's fried.
Can't drive anywhere?
Nope. Got to be pushed if you would like to move it.
We checked out car prices for Caitlin and made a surprising discovery.
Here is a brand new 2014 Beetle. In Canada, that car is $24,000 and change.
Right.
But in Bellingham, about an hour's drive from here in the States, that exact same car is $3,000 cheaper.
Really?
Turns out all kinds of new cars are cheaper in the U.S. Like Honda's CR-V, made in Canada, but more than $3,000 less in the States. The Dodge Grand Caravan's made in Canada too. It's $7,000 cheaper south of the border. So we head to Buffalo, New York to find out if Caitlin and other Canadians can buy a new car cheaper in the States. But on hidden camera, dealer after dealer turns us down.
Unfortunately, I can't sell you a new car down here.
Why? A dealer tells us he's under corporate order not to sell new to Canadians to keep prices higher in Canada.
What they were afraid of, everybody from Canada would just come here and buy their cars, take them back home.
And we get our hands on a memo from a big car maker. It discourages American dealers from selling to Canadians, saying if they do, they'll no longer be eligible for program payouts or bonuses. This car expert says a deal that shuts Canadians out of thousands in savings goes against the spirit of NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement.
If we are going for free trade for the car makers, then it should to some degree be free, equally free for the consumer.
We requested interviews in Ottawa, but were turned down. And the car makers we asked, they wouldn't talk either. Erica Johnson, CBC News, Toronto.
A third day of negotiations between Iran and 6 major powers kicked off this morning after both sides said that some progress toward an interim deal to curb Tehran's nuclear program had been made. Nal Ayed has more.
In the search for common language, the negotiators find themselves in the same boat, still in Geneva and under enormous pressure to find common ground. They have some already. A deal on Iran's nuclear know-how could pay dividends for Iran and the West. And for both, failure could be perilous, could even end in a Mideast war. The window, though, is awfully narrow.
My name is Javad Zarif, and this is Iran's message.
And so nearly anyone with a stake is going some distance to narrow the gaps. For Javad Zarif, that meant starting with a slick U.S. election-style message.
We all need a sober appreciation of our common destiny, our common challenges, and our common opportunities.
For the U.S., pushing for a deal has meant trying to hold off new sanctions and taking talks slowly. The Secretary of State is only arriving tomorrow. For Russia, it's meant the foreign minister arriving today in the thick of negotiations.
And the West willing to...
For the invested, it's meant coming all the way here simply to encourage and cheer the talks on, like Ali Vaez did.
Instead of the previous game of chicken in which each side constantly tried to increase its leverage and coerce the other side to an agreement, we really have come to the stage that the two sides have to compromise in the real sense of the word.
And for ordinary Iranians, deeply invested but powerless to intervene, it's meant simply watching closely.
It will send Iran back even further down the timeline if Iran is further isolated. We really need to have good relationships with the mainstream world, with the rest of the world.
It's this simple. If there is a deal, it could be a major boost for engagement between foes in the region. Without one, the mood for moderation is likely gone until the next rare window. Nal Ayed, CBC News, Geneva.
Communities in central Newfoundland should have their power restored today after a winter storm ripped across the island yesterday. High winds and snow tore down power lines. In the small town of Badger, about 800 people there were left without electricity or water. Conditions got so bad, officials had to declare a state of emergency. Crews are still repairing about 25 hydro poles that were damaged in the storm. A command center has been set up in town for any residents who may be in need of food or shelter.
It's a very special day at Rideau Hall in Ottawa. That's Governor General David Johnston and his wife Sharon getting ready to bestow the Order of Canada on 38 remarkable citizens, like the former host of Radio 1 Toronto's Metro Morning, Andy Barry. Barry helmed that show for 15 years before hanging up the microphone in 2010. Michael Enright, host of Radio 1's The Sunday Edition, got the award for his contributions to journalism after decades of work. 17 were awarded officer status, including former Assembly of First Nations Grand Chief Phil Fontaine for his role in resolving residential school claims.
On the markets today, the TSX inched up 3 points to 13,478. The Dow gained 54 points to 16,064, and the Nasdaq ended the day 22 points up to 39.91. The Canadian dollar was virtually unchanged to close at 95 cents US. Gold closed at $1,244 an ounce, up 50 cents. And crude was down 60 cents to $94.84 per barrel.
Well, it's been quite some time since the Lakehead women's basketball team has had a better record than the men, but that's the case this year. The men just 1-5, while the women playing 500 ball at 3-3. You can catch them both tonight.
Yeah, and for the women, this is pretty well critical. It's the last home games for both teams until the new year. For the men, Ryerson's had their number over the years, and Toronto has a winning record. For the women, though, U of T tonight coming to this game winless, so you want to pounce on that and make sure they lose again. Another big weekend in Lakehead Varsity Sports. Both hoops teams at the Fieldhouse tonight to host the University of Toronto Blues. The Lady Wolves sit at 3-3, the men 1-5. And the 6th-ranked Thunder Rolls hockey team is in Oshawa to open up a 2-game series tonight with Ontario Tech. Now, despite filling the net on a regular basis this season, the Wolves' power play has been ineffective, converting about 16% of the time. Head coach Bill McDonald has been using 2 power play units, and he says if they don't start producing, he'll be looking to change that philosophy.
Really, if you look at the 10 guys on the unit, I've split them up, and everybody's kind of get ice time. And really, if I really wanted to get detailed and defined, I could pick the best 5 out of the 10 and go with it. And I haven't did that yet, and I don't want to do it yet. I think we should have 2 units. And but in the back of my mind, if there comes a time during the game or during the season where I think we have to do it, maybe I'll just define 5 guys.
For a power play, you have to get chances and get shots, and it seems that we've been doing that. So, Our breakout seems to be all right. I mean, you're going to have those power plays where, you know, things aren't going right. So, but from what I've seen the last couple games, we've been getting lots of chances. They just haven't been going in, but they'll come.
Over at the Gardens tonight, the 16th ranked Thunder Bay North Stars host Dryden in the first of a 2-game series. The Stars are 12-2-3. The Ice Dogs sit a game under sea level. NHL action tonight, 5 games including Montreal and Washington. The Flames welcome the Panthers, and Vancouver hopes to snap a 5-game winless streak at home against Columbus. Last night in Boston, they would need a shootout to decide it. Derek Roy would finish off the Bruins 3-2. He also scored a goal during regulation time. In Winnipeg, Chicago would end up, okay, Claude, enough for you. Chicago would snap a 3-all tie with 3 unanswered goals in the third. Marion Hosa's 10th was the game winner. Hawks win it 6-3 in Toronto. It will be Nashville breaking it open with 3 second period goals. Craig Smith with a pair. Preds double up. The Leafs 4-2, and Edmonton continues to light it up. Jordan Eberle with a pair. He's up to 8 on the season. Oilers tame the Panthers 4-1. Other games, Philly buried Buffalo 4-1. Detroit edged Carolina 4-3. The Rangers held off Dallas 3-2. Colorado slips by Phoenix in OT 4-3. Jersey crowned the Kings in overtime 2-1. And San Jose ripped Tampa Bay 5-1. At the Office of Varsity Boys Volleyball Championships of the city, Dryden stayed undefeated, sweeping CW Jeffries from Toronto 25-6, 25-15. They are currently on the court playing Coburg in the quarterfinals. Churchill had to win its game this afternoon to qualify for the Final 8. Mike Albanese recaps their contest against a high school from Ottawa.
The Churchill Trojans taking on the Falcons from Ottawa in St. Pat's Gym, and they were evenly matched for the first few points in the first set, both making some great recoveries. Jordani Semaju slams this ball down 6-6 in the first set. Later in the set, the Falcons put together a 3-point stretch, one of the longest stretches of the first set thus far. Middle Alexandre Gandolfini making a great diving effort, which led to a point, 18-14 the Falcons. The game not so close anymore, the Trojans making some mistakes around the net as the Falcons find a way to pull ahead 23-16. Set point 24-19 for the Falcons, and they set up Gandolfini for the dagger. The first set belongs to Ottawa. The second set looking even again at the beginning, but the Trojans trying to get back in the game. Simran Shahal blocks a ball at the net with authority, tying it at 3 apiece. Later in the set, the Falcons take a commanding lead, and it's off plays like this. Semajus comes in and blasts a ball too hot to handle. Falcons up 11-4. From bad to worse for the Trojans, the Falcons string up a 6-point spree. With the score already lopsided, it's Gandolfini again with a big block. Match point, Javon Shahal with the pressure on, hits the ball out of bounds as the Falcons win it in 2 sets. The Trojans finding positives in their experience, though.
Our goal as a team was to get the offset and come top 8. If we happen to win consolation side, that can be called 9th, so we're right up to where we want to be.
It's a very different kind of game. It's crazy to see these right sides, these middles, things that we don't usually see inside the city. There's setters that can do things that we've never seen before. It's incredible. To adjust to this is just unbelievable. I'm so surprised that my team has been able to come together and adjust to such a contrast of playing style.
Mike Albanese, TBT Sports.
Week 12 in the NFL opened last night with an NFC South matchup as the disappointed Atlanta Falcons played host to New Orleans, who you may recall took the earlier matchup in September 23-17. The Falcons will open the scoring 6 minutes into the game. Running back Steven Jackson pounds it in from a yard out. It's 7-0 Atlanta. Later in the first, Saints quarterback Drew Brees will tie it up. He'll find veteran tight end Benjamin Watson at the back of the end zone. That too would be a 1-yard major. Down by 3, the Saints go in front to stay as Brees airs it out 44 yards to perhaps his favorite target. That's tight end Jimmy Graham carrying a Falcon on his back for the touchdown reception. New Orleans wins it 17-13, so they improve to 9-2. Atlanta, it's been a season to forget. They're 2-9. Hamilton has won 15 Grey Cups, the last coming in 1999. And there's a group of former Saskatchewan Roughriders who would love to end that dry spell in Regina Sunday night.
Andy Fantu spent the first 6 seasons of his CFL career in green and white. He returns Sunday as the enemy on Canadian football's biggest stage.
I don't know what to expect, and I'm not too worried about it. It's I think it'll be mixed reactions for me, and overall, just kind of once the whistle blows, just got to tune it out anyway.
Fantuz has been a Ticat for 2 seasons now. Henry Burris hasn't been a rider since 2004. He knows the reception he'll receive on Sunday, but he's not too worried about it.
It's like playing with my boys, in the basement, because they razz me, they get after me, and we compete against each other. But, honestly, what people don't understand is, like, whenever you try to heckle somebody, it only dials them in more and makes them focus. And
the elements, the hostile territory, the Tiger Cats are preparing to block it all out.
You're going into basically rider territory, and the fan base is definitely going to be tilted to their side, and they're going to do any and everything they can to help give their team that home field advantage. But we're a focus group, and we've been working silent count now for the past couple of weeks, so at least we have a good understanding of what we need to do as far as without communication and signaling to make sure we're on the same page.
Burris first made a name for himself in the CFL as a rider. Fantuz became a star in green and white. For both, the 101st Grey Cup in Regina against the Riders is a dream scenario.
Fantuz and I, we were talking about last year when the 100th Grey Cup was in Toronto, and we looked at each other and said, man, our 100th would be to play in Regina next year because of our past being here and just all the great memories we have here, and the great friends that we made here and people that I consider family that still are here. And
for us to be a part of it is really special, and anytime you can make it to the Grey Cup as a player, you don't really care too much where it is, but it is extra special in Regina for sure.
And 24 years ago at the Grey Cup, Saskatchewan won their second CFL championship on a game-winning field goal by Dave Ridgway against, ironically, the team they will face Sunday night, Hamilton. The Riders reflect on that memorable moment.
What a game. I mean, high scoring, back and forth, very little defense, and I guess it just came down to who had the ball last, and that drive that Kent put together to end that game, man. That shows you why he's a legend around here.
Big kick, big kick for the win. Hopefully it doesn't have to come down to something like that, but at the same time, that's what makes this sport really exciting to watch, and I don't think there's much more of an exciting moment throughout CFL history than that one.
It is prediction time, which means everyone who listens to this is going to pick the opposite team. So, if you're a Riders fan, sorry folks, the Riders are going to win the Grey Cup 24-17. And the Raptors, they opened up a 4-game homestand at the Hangar tonight against the Washington Wizards.
I was cheering for the Riders until you said that. Now I just don't know.
Why do you always feel the need to predict things? You've been wrong on the Leafs since like 1967.
Wants to know what his
because everybody's just hoping that one time I get something right. What I'll do.
It'll never
happen. I can save you some time.
All right. Well, this fall and earlier in the year, it's become very popular. I'm talking about the mystique of Sherlock Holmes. Well, you can find out a little bit more about the real Sherlock Holmes. It's on our lineup tonight. With more, here's Teletalk.
Tonight on Global Thunder Bay, starting at 8 on Bones, a food scientist is found in a school cafeteria's special of the day. Then at 9 on Hawaii 5-0, a Secret Service agent is murdered as the president travels to Oahu. And at 10 on The Real Sherlock Holmes, we look into the hidden side of Holmes's legacy. Over on CKPR Thunder Bay at 8, Marketplace compares prices in Canada and the U.S. At 8:30 p.m., Rick joins the Paralympic sailing team in Halifax on the Rick Mercer Report. Then at 9, the Fifth Estate dips into the conspiracy files on 9/11 and the JFK assassination. And at 11:35, George talks with Academy Award winner Jeremy Irons. Teletalk is brought to you by Points, the traffic ticket specialists.
Well, earlier in the week, we saw some rain, Fiona, and it's not looking like we're going to be seeing rain anytime soon with the chilly temperatures that we're experiencing.
Yeah, it's looking to be pretty cold this weekend. So today's high of -3 is going to be a long-lost memory very quickly. The wind chill felt like about -8 just a few hours ago, but it's going to drop like a rock. Now, if we take a look what's going on across the country, earlier this week, very, very cold in the west. Right now, it's fairly seasonal for Vancouver at 6 Celsius, -2 in Prince George, and Edmonton and Calgary are just basking in their seasonal temperatures because it was a good 10 to 15 degrees cooler just a couple of days ago. We've got clouds in Edmonton, Calgary, partly sunny skies, and southern Saskatchewan. They're feeling the brunt of all that cold winter-like weather. -23 in Saskatoon, -25 in Regina. They are very thankfully and happily passing on the cold to us because southern Saskatchewan is going to see temperatures rebound up to more seasonal values in the next 24 hours, which is a nice change of pace because this morning they saw wind chill values of -37 at about 10 a.m. Now, Winnipeg currently at -16 under cloudy skies. They had some drifting snow, and wind chills for most of the day have been about the mid-20s, on the minus side, of course. Toronto currently at 3 Celsius, light rain on and off for much of the day for Toronto and as far northeast into Ottawa and Montreal. Quebec City sitting right on the freezing mark. They've had periods of snow for the last few hours. Meanwhile, the Maritimes, they have seen a slow and gentle drop back to seasonal values after a very warm start to the week. They're currently seeing clouds in Fredericton and partly cloudy in Charlottetown and Halifax. More rain for St. John's. They're currently at 2 Celsius. Now the system's moving through. Well, we've had this cold front and we have seen some cooler temperature. A little bit of potential snow today moved through the region. We just caught the edge of it. As we head into tomorrow, high pressure center is going to pull some more air from the northwest, rotating around, so we are going to get a nice boost of cold air. It's going to be frigid for Saturday. As we head into Sunday, though, we get just kind of behind this warm front, and the warm front bumping into all this cold air is going to make for some light snow in the region right over top of us. We seem to be right in the thick of things. Now tonight, cold to the west, and really what they're saying with these cold temperatures is it's going to be the wind chill that is going to catch people off guard in many locations. We've got snow to the east in Greenstone and towards Sault Ste. Marie. Tomorrow, sunshine if you head a little bit further north and a little bit further west, but unfortunately those cold temperatures are not going anywhere for Saturday. Currently, we are at -7 with the wind chill feels like -14, and tonight we could see a couple of evening snow showers, wind chill values dropping down to -23, and that's with winds from the northwest. Tomorrow, 10, lots of sunshine. Unfortunately, because of the winds, we're looking at wind chill values about -20 or colder, -17 tomorrow night under clear skies. Then things start to warm up. Why? Because we got some snow. Just happens that way. -6 Celsius for Sunday. And if we take a look into early next week, we've got clouds and -3 on Tuesday with some light flurries and variable skies on Wednesday. So Saturday, definitely the coldest, a little bit of a warm up, and then we're going to head back into the cold weather.
The 12th Annual Alzheimer Rendezvous will take place next week with a gourmet dinner and silent auction. Brent Hawley has all the details for you in tonight's edition of Front Row Center.
Well, hello, this is Front Row Center. I'm Brent Hawley, letting you know what's happening in the community of Thunder Bay once again. And in less than a week's time, on Thursday, November the 28th, the 12th Annual Alzheimer's Rendezvous, presented by TBT, is happening down at the Victoria Inn. Now, this is going to include a gourmet dinner, silent auction, and a balloon raffle. Now, the great thing about the balloon raffle, you can win a trip for 2 anywhere that Porter flies. It could be yours. You're going to be in attendance, of course, to win. And there's going to be a guest speaker, Steve Paikin from you might know him from TBO, The Agenda. Now that's all going down. Now the symposium's at 5:30. The dinner's at 6:30. If you're looking for tickets, they're $75 each, or you can buy an entire table if you like. If you want them, just give the Alzheimer's Society a call, 345-9556, or visit alzheimers.ca.
Front Row Center is brought to you by Teleco. We hear you at Teleco, your TBT authorized dealer, 601 Central Avenue.
Hey, have any of you been in a food fight before?
Yes, I have.
They're fun, right?
They
are. We're going
Great
to
for
show
a little
you.
bit until you have to wash yourself off afterwards.
Yeah. Well, we're going to show you a really fun pie food fighting competition. That's next. See. Here's a video of some good, clean fun. Well, maybe minus the clean part. Kids from 2 Chicago schools took part in what was billed as the mother of all pie fights. It was for a good cause, raising money for the schools. It's nice to see the classic techniques perfected by the Three Stooges have stood the test of time. That looks like a lot of fun.
Oh, that looks sticky.
I think it'd be fun.
But they were in full gear.
Yeah,
they were completely protected. That's cheating as far as I'm concerned. Unless you're digging something out of your ear afterwards, it's not a real food fight.
We should have a food fight on the desk, all in our suits.
No.
No.
Recapping our top stories, a group of residents and business owners near the Port Arthur Prosvita have concerns about plans to put a youth center in the building, and they have a petition making the rounds. We've got 200 names on it thus far.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Have a great weekend.